You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. My guest, Bright Simmons, Honorary Vice President, Imani Africa, and here representing the 18 CSOs who say the EC's arguments are deficient and cannot be relied on. Clara Berry Kasati is legal consultant and law lecturer, yet to be heard, and Dr. Srebo Kweku is Director of Electoral Services, Electoral Commission, and Dr. Yao Ejay Ofori-Ejay is IT consultant to the Electoral Commission of Ghana. We had to go to Professor Ajiman Atefa, head of the National Identification Authority, to speak to. Of course, from what he says, we also know how some opposition political parties don't want to hear that it is the national identification card that may be used for the purposes of putting together a voters' roll for 2020 elections. We'll try to interrogate what the suspicion and mistrust is all about. But let's hear Clara Berry now. Yes.
Okay. Now, listening to the arguments back and forth, including the arguments that the EC had earlier on advanced, the main issue for me that came up was what Bright referred to. Is this a PR gimmick for a new register, or is there the need for a new register? Of course, I came to my conclusion as to what I think the reasons given. But before I share what my opinion is, I would like us to go through the legal framework for the EC so that we can everybody can independently assess whether we need a new register, or this is more or less that a decision had been taken to procure a new register and we just have to now find reasons to provide why we must take this. Now, why do we have the EC by law? We have the EC for one main reason, which is Article 42 of the Constitution, the right to vote. Because under Article 42, the Constitution gives the citizen the right to vote, provided you are 18 and above and of sound mind. Now, the body that has the main responsibility for making sure that we realize this right to vote is the EC. So the functions that the EC is set up is first and foremost to make sure that every Ghanaian who is 18 years and of sound mind has the opportunity to exercise their constitutional guaranteed right to vote. The functions of the EC are directly linked to this right. Now, if you come to the functions of the EC that are stated in Article 45, the main one that links to the right to vote, relevant to this discussion, is A, which is to compile the register of voters and to revise it at such periods as may be determined by law. Now, if you look at the Constitution, the clear wording of the Constitution, what was the intention? You compile the register once. And then after you have compiled the register once, you revise it. And why would you revise it? Of course, people will turn 18 every so often, and then they need to register as well. And then, of course, some people would die, and they have to be taken off the register. So if you look at the clear wording of the 1992 Constitution, the intention clearly stated in the Constitution was to compile a register. And then after that, you revise it. Now, since 92, what has the EC done? Has the EC compiled one register and been revising it, or we keep compiling, and then anytime we compile and you want to raise issue, we run back to Article 45 and say we have the right to compile? The intention was not to keep compiling and to keep compiling and to keep compiling. It was to compile and then to revise the register as time goes along. Now, of course, in compiling the register, what does what is the EC required to do? If you look at Article 51, it is mandatory for the EC to have a CI. The EC has to come out with a constitutional instrument each time when they are compiling the register. So if they are supposed to compile a new register with this one, the law requires them to have a CI.
Really?
Yes. If they are not going to, if they are going to do things that are different from what is in the CI, they must have a CI.
Okay, now you clarify. Because yes. CI 91, which they are using presently, has given room for continuous registration.
But from what they are saying, they intend to do things that are not in the CI 97.
It is.
Let her finish.
Because
what do they intend to do?
Because some of the issues that they are talking about from his presentation that he talks about, they want to do a lot more things in terms of biometric verification people, all those other things that he...
Those are things that are already being done. The only new introduction...
No, wait. Okay. She has not mentioned what she says is something you are intending to do that the law does not empower you, for which you need a new law. So let her name that, and then we find out whether or not the law empowers you to do. They say they're going to add facial recognition as part of the authentication
verification
process.
Both at registration and verification.
Registration and verification. You say the new law does not make provision for that.
I'm saying that if they are going to add anything in this new registration that is not already covered by the CI, they must have a CI.
Okay.
So to the extent that they intend to introduce anything new in this proposed registration that they want to do, that is not already covered by CI 91, they will have to come out with another CI.
Okay. Please pause for me. Show us where you say that the addition of facial recognition at registration and for verification purposes is captured in the law.
The current law that governs our registration is CI 91, which was passed in 2016.
That's right.
Then it talks about compilation of biometric information, whatever. Then if you look at the interpretation, regulation 32. 32. We say that biometric information means the electronic template derived from the measurement and analysis of unique human body characteristics, including fingerprints, facial cuttings, eye readiness, and irises, and thumbprint measurement for the purpose of establishing a person's identity.
Okay.
So for us, we don't need any additional LI because this is enough for what we want to do.
Okay, so what additions, because if I understood the presentation right, this was supposed to make something better. What were the additions that were supposed to be?
The only addition that we were going to put in was the facial recognition.
It was the facial recognition.
That's the only addition that has been added to it.
Okay.
But everything else essentially remains same.
Okay.
So everything else.
This is good, education, but shall we open to section 72?
Of the Constitution?
This CI.
No, it doesn't have 70.
27.
Okay.
27.
Yeah.
Yes. So can we check 27 too?
27 to say that the procedure for certifying the register include the following: A, matching the fingerprints in the database of the commission by automatic fingerprint identification system. Then B, examine the facial and personal data of the applications with the that is when we're doing multiple registrations. With the multiple registrations by an education supervisor of the commission.
Does that suggest to you that you can use, the law allows you to do facial recognition verification?
Exactly. That's what we are.
You see, it goes beyond that, because when we do the adjudication process as well, remember that during the registration, there are some people who because they either don't have limbs or we cannot capture their fingerprints, who have to go through an adjudication process. Now, by adding that additional layer of facial recognition, we are able to do, without human intervention, some matching.
Okay.
It is not foolproof.
Right. It is not so that if you read the section he just read, the clear indication is that, the wording is that you do matching of fingerprints in the database. Matching of fingerprints. It does not seem to suggest that you can match face.
I think there's some quick clarification we need to be aware of. Our system already has facial recognition. What they are talking about is automatic facial recognition. So often there may be confusion around what the current system is such that when you do the scanning, they have to look at your photograph.
Okay.
That is, for most countries in the world, the kind of facial technology that is implemented currently.
All right.
So the automatic facial recognition is something else entirely.
Okay, so Clara just started. So,
okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
can I just clarify?
I think we're interrupting her too much. We're interrupting her too much.
Exactly.
So just hold on.
Okay.
Yes.
Clara. So the point really is of course, because they made the argument that they want to make it better. But for me, it is not as critical as to, because for me, even what I understand of what the right to vote is that you just want to be sure this is the person. We don't need a lot of bells. We just need to be sure that we have a very confident system that we can be sure that this is who the person says she is, and then the person is allowed to exercise the right to vote. Now, when it came to, so we now come back to the issue of how the Electoral Commission has exercised its function to compile a voters register. I've heard a lot of the complaints that have been raised against the existing system, including the fact that one of it was that there was no knowledge transfer. So we paid for a service, and then you did not take the service. And so what happens at the end of the day? Now, what made it more interesting for me is that if we really had a problem that we wanted to solve, the discussions around the problem should have been more elaborate and more transparent, even including from Parliament. When EC came saying that we want to make a new register, and then we want this much to make a new register, I expected to see a lot more questions on why you need a new register when we have a biometric system going on, and we have the NIA going on. And most importantly, I expected Parliament to have called in STL, the one who is managing this, to clarify some of the issues that were being raised. Yes, you may be a private person, but if you are being paid money from the public purse, and there are questions surrounding your contract or the performance of your services to the particular public service that you are being paid from the public purse, I don't see why the people's representatives shouldn't ask more questions. Probably, if we asked more questions, we could find answers to some of the issues that they raise. So that brought to me whether we really had problems we couldn't find solutions to, or as usual, because if you look at the track record of the EC, it's like compiling a register is part of every cycle. Every 4 years, more or less, we want to compile a new register. So it was like, well, we have decided we've come to the time again, let's compile a new register, and then what will we tell the public?
So that is to say, you choose not to believe what they are telling you about the nature of the systems that are at end use, some of which have become obsolete, some of which have become, they say, useless, and that this is proprietary software.
Not that I choose not to believe.
You cannot even migrate, even if you wanted to migrate.
Not that I choose not to believe. It's not convincing. It's not persuasive. I mean, this is a technological age. Like I said, if they brought all concerned parties for a transparent discussion, I'm sure that answers would be found to these.
You pay them to do work for you. If they took you to the elections with the register they say is unreliable, it's not fit for purpose, and trouble came because of the register, and because that what they wanted to introduce you resisted, you will blame them.
Because also the reasons they are actually giving for this actually cause more concern. Now, if you are talking about the issue of competence, because part of the questions that, the issues that the chairperson raised when I listened to some of her tapes was the fact that they didn't have the expertise in-house.
And it's the same IT team that has been there for all this while, and they are complaining about all these problems.
And that is my concern, because you are telling me that a system you have been working with since when? Since 2011. You don't know that one well enough. But you plan that when you get a new system, in less than 1 year, probably in less than 9 months, you would have mastered that new system so well that you can do better. It's not convincing.
No, they say we have worked with the system. We have gotten to points where we have had to manage. He says they have had to even cannibalize some of the kits, some of the BVDs, right?
BVDs, BVRs.
BVDs and BVRs to be able to do what? To give you a semblance of what works.
Yes, and besides, we're going to a referendum when we would have had a national referendum actually for the whether or not to amend the constitution with respect to the partisan politics in district assembly elections. Right. Which register were we going with, and which equipment were we going with a referendum? A referendum is more or less like a national election.
That's right.
So, exactly, very important issue. Were they prepared? Are they suggesting that they were not prepared for that referendum or not?
Can you answer that question to Clara?
No, I think let me
okay.
make.
I'll note it and have you answer it.
Let me make some of the
Because you use
points.
the same system you complain about for the district level elections.
Nearly 1,000 elections so far.
Yeah, district level elections, and before the district level elections, you had used the same thing for the creation of new regions and so on. So that's actually a legitimate question. Yeah, Clara, go on.
They suggest on issues with this contract that they executed. When I listen to the excuses they are giving under the second arrangement, you get the impression as if this is a law that was imposed on them that do A, B, C, D, rather than this was a voluntary contract that you negotiated and entered into. Exactly. that you negotiated the terms that are in this contract and you voluntarily entered into this contract because you thought they were the terms of the contract were satisfactory to you. It doesn't make sense to me because the arrangement they have was not thrown at them. It was an arrangement they negotiated and entered into every contract.
There's a completely new management at the election.
No, let's not do that to ourselves. Let's not do that to ourselves. When we have institutions, we grow. We cannot afford to keep starting over and over and over again. That's not how we grow.
When you've discovered a wrong, you deal with it.
Yes, if you discovered a wrong in that contract, is that contract a public document? It should be a public document.
Exactly.
That contract should be a public document. And I am almost confident that the contract would provide in the contract for how to resolve issues that arise. So let the EC make that contract public for all of us to see. Let the STL, let STL be willing to be called to come and speak to the issues. The truth is we can't afford to keep doing this procurement of a new register. Besides, yes, I understand some of the issues that are coming with NIA, but we must have a plan. Yeah. So we must have a plan to work towards a long-term solution. We just can't afford to have public institutions each doing their own thing. That is an underlying problem. We just talked about that in the road safety. It's an underlying problem. We have to stop that because it's not helping us. It's not as if we are a country that have so much resources to spare. We don't have that much money to spare. So one thing, all our state institutions have just one client. That one client is the people of Ghana. So there is absolutely no reason why they should not be able to collaborate. So yes, even if they are not very sure that the NIA, you will have to find a way of working together. There is a difference if you are interested in solving the issue and you bring NIA on board and all the other public institutions on board and we decide that this is what we want to do. We will find solutions.
Okay, but, so they suggest to you.
But, but if you decide that this is what I want to do, you are going to have excuses for everything that comes up.
Okay, so they suggest to you that it's not a mere excuse. That even if they were supposed to go with the upgrade that you support, you would know that they would need this STL, so to speak, because they are dealing with a proprietary software. So imagine that they are able to break that and get them to assist in the process. If they were doing the migration or conversion, you would have data loss, particularly when the system, you're dealing with old things that have to be cannibalized and all of that, there will be data loss.
I am sure that when it comes to those data issues, I will leave it to the IT experts. I am sure in this technological age, it can be solved.
And they say doing that costs you more than getting a new system.
The discussion on cost is misleading.
Yes, because
it is completely misleading. Exactly. Apart from the codes that they are even giving, which we are not privy to because of the transparency issues that we don't know about. Now, even let's grant them, assuming without admitting at all, that what they say is the issue. We are talking as if once we make this new register, that ends it. If you make this new register, you are still going to have limited registration because as people turn 18, they have to register. So you are still going to have to take out names. So there's still going to be upgrading. What's the cost of that one? We haven't discussed it because we haven't got to that bridge. Okay. So the discussion on cost is completely misleading.
All right.
I think we have to just, like we said, get to a system where we decide that, look, all state institutions can collaborate. We can't afford to keep making a new voters register. It's just not reasonable.
So, yeah, I'll come to you and to Bright as well, but you wanted to make an intervention when Clara was speaking, and yes.
I think was it an issue about why don't you wait for the NIA to complete, or which one?
You can take it from the bottom part, where you have complained that even if you are going to do the conversion or migration of the systems, there will be data loss. And that's expensive.
Yeah, but I wanted to write to first. I think we've all established that the new introduction of the new facial regulation doesn't need any law change because this one is enough to capture that.
There's somebody else who disagree, but you have at least sufficiently explained.
I think I also put it down here that there was a question about why don't you wait for the NIA to complete the work, and I've always been talking about time bound, and even the NIA issue, we will need to do a lot of consultation because it is not an issue of NIA has finished and everybody will agree that use it. So if we want to go by the NIA, assuming we finish the match that we are talking of, we will need to do a lot of consultation for the acceptance of the data before you can start using that one.
Consultation for the acceptance of the data, what do you mean by that?
But you are in Ghana, and I can say clearly that you know there are some people who are objecting to even the ID, the method that using the NIA card as part of proof of eligibility for our comparison results, some people are kicking against it. When it is not only proof of eligibility, as one of the four, because people are kicking against it. So if you want to say that, let's do wholesome transfer of the NIA data to us. Like I said, we will be comfortable, we can sleep because the tedious nature of going to the referendum will be lost.
There are times that people have raised questions and you have pointed to them the constitution that says that you are independent and you are not subject to the direction or control of anybody. Why is it that on the issue of those who may have issues with you're relying on the national identification card, you can say the same to them and you probably will get good support from the people?
If everybody were to agree with what we are saying, then we shouldn't be here. Means that immediately we say that we are going, then we should go. Because we don't care about what people say. We care. That's why we do a lot of engagements. But what I'm saying is that anything that you want to do, you see, people compare this assembly election referendum with general elections. I beg to differ. Seriously. Because if you talk of national elections, you know what has happened to other countries. And they were not as a result of this level election. So we are in the, I don't know what to say, the center of the issue. We have our data, we have our records, and we see that if care is not taken, and we have to go with this system, we are going to have a lot of serious challenges in 2020.
So you were ready to risk in all the other processes, district level election, referendum, everything else, but this one, you don't want to risk it. That's what you're saying.
Because for the referendum that we are all talking about, is if it is consensus. Because if you talk of the creation of the new regions, we read that people will raise a lot of issues, but because almost everybody agreed that it should be done, it didn't end. We are talking of a country where people win election or lose election by 3 votes. 3 votes. In 2008, the difference between the two candidates that led to the second round was less than 30,000. It was when we did the second round that Professor Mills beat
when you went to time.
Yes. That the difference became about 40,000. And we are talking of national general elections.
They say they want to be convinced. How come, when it comes to the 2020 elections, you seem to be so certain that the system will crash, and yet for all the others, you were able to manage the system, as you say?
As I'm saying, we know how we suffered to put the data in place for us to do the referendum.
So share with us so we can carry that along.
Because he was in the center of the cannibalization, that he can talk to him better. But I know that we had to use about 6 months to put the system in place before we did the district level election. And some of the risks that we took at that time, sitting here, if you ask me to take for the general election, I will not do it.
Okay.
So, like I said, and even the district level election that we are talking of, do you believe that as a number of about 20 of such cases in court? 20, the district level election.
Okay.
And we cannot take that risk to general elections. I know clearly that 2020...
The contests you have in court, the challenges you have in court, they are related to
the
register?
Margin of difference, yes.
To the register?
No, margin of difference.
No, are they related to the credibility of the register?
It links to, because without the margin of difference, if somebody said, I don't understand that I lost by 3 votes, then you go into it, what happened? There were manual verification. So there are a lot of issues that are coming up. But I said that this level election, that publicity is not high, I don't know the word, but the temperature is not as high as general elections. Okay. So we want to, 2020, by all means, somebody will lose.
All right.
Somebody will win.
Look, I know there are issues you noted from Bright Simmons you want to respond to.
Let me start.
But before that, this is what Professor Tifa tells us. Even though they have 7.3 million, they have 4 million cards. You say it's the cards you will need. He suggests to you that the 7.3 million data collected, 63% of people who registered have brought their ID cards. So they have their voter ID numbers, which means 63% of the 7.2 million records can, you know, be ready for polling station numbers to be extracted from. If you are looking for the pictures, they say they have collected pictures. So face recognition is ready.
I have to hide the...
Yeah.
Right. So let me start off by saying that the last technical meeting that was done between the Electoral Commission and the NIA, I was part of that meeting, and we discussed the various integration ways in which we could actually integrate both systems, right? Because as has been said, we've said that the Electoral Commission is not interested in the business of registration. It is it's too much of a headache that if somebody will take it up, we would prefer. So on that score, we're in sync that we want to collaborate with the National Identification Authority to ensure that they would harvest that data and they would use it. But the question was that, will they be ready in time for us to be able to compile that new register for us to use for the 2020 general election? The feeling at that time was that we did not think so.
You have not yet started. He says, he gives you the assurance that they are ready.
I'm coming. This was in December. At that time, some of their registration kits, the additional ones that were bringing had not come in yet. So for somebody who is supposed to, it's time bound by certain milestones to be able to generate a register for the 2020 election, I think that would have been foolhardy on our part to say that we would wait for them to finish per chance.
How about now? Now they say they are ready, and they say they can now transfer minimum 100,000 daily to EC if you put your link.
I'm coming, and those links were discussed. We actually even discussed how we would integrate the systems. It was discussed, but per their own admission, they even said that when they did an analysis of the ones that they have registered so far, there were people who had registered with, like more than four people at some point in time had registered with the same voter ID number. Now that needs to be interrogated if you are going to integrate those two systems. The next question is...
Your process will not be foolproof.
It's not, but the point I'm making, the other point I'm making to that process itself is also not foolproof, and it's not without adventure.
You're going to start in April. He says by March, they expect that there will be only 4 million left to be captured, and they can take care of that through their continuous process.
Granted, but the other point that we need to remember is that at which point, because mind you, the data that they collect doesn't have the polling station codes in it. There are about 29,000 polling stations. Do they have 29,000 registration devices? Or are they going to do them in bits and pieces?
You can't take the data and for the purposes of your exhibition that you do, ensure that you are able to identify people into their polling stations.
We are talking about the processes. So I'm walking you through some of the processes that we need to do. So if we are going to, say today NIA comes and says that I have all the data that you require, what is missing is the polling station number. Let the people come and bring their voter IDs. And
national ID.
Their national IDs to the polling stations where they are and say that this is my polling station, so put me into this polling station. How are you going to do it?
Reading your material, you suggest that you are not going to abandon the register.
No, we are not.
Okay. People are holding ID cards generated on this register.
Yes.
Which the NIA is using.
Yes.
What's the problem? Explain.
So that's what I'm saying, that we have discussed both, for example, things like sharing, databases, or even using our AFIS against theirs and doing matches. Those things have been discussed, but hasn't yet materialized because we need to be sure that whatever action that we take, we will not be disenfranchising anybody. And so there must be some harmonization process that would go on. Okay. That harmonization process hasn't been thought through yet as we speak.
All right.
All right.
Deal with the issues you noted from Bright Simmons so we can bring him back.
Okay. So that's the bit about
then we'll go to the phone lines and speak to an expert
I think that Bright Simmons
another aspect, I mean.
Yeah, CSO have not done the public a lot of good.
Okay. Why
because I think that if they had taken their time to actually understand the issues that we have raised, we wouldn't have some of these discussions that we are having. And I'll make a point. The CSOs make a point that we are misusing public funds. It's claiming in their statements that whatever it is that we are doing, It's a misuse of public funds, and that we are procurement junkies. That's what you describe us as. Yes?
No, we say we don't want procurement junkie gigs.
Well,
so not that you are
in essence, that's what you are saying. How is it that if indeed we wanted to misuse public funds, it would have been very easy for us to say that, carry on, old vendor STL, we will do the upgrade, as everybody else wants us to, even though per analysis we think that wasn't the best option. We could have said that, and then would have lost significant amount of money per assessment.
There's a lot of enemies in this country, so I'm not surprised that it was abrogated. This is the second time.
It is your assertion, please. And the thing that you need to understand is that we did this looking at the public interest. Okay. Now you say that nobody has seen the tender documents. I'm surprised that they will say this.
The COSO community and the media.
I'm surprised because that document was published. It was on the PPA portal. It was readily available.
I've been to the PPA portal.
Even people.
Can you ask them to check?
The announcement of the tender.
Yeah, but that's the point. They don't announce it, but not the
EOI. So that it is there right this moment.
No, the announcement of the.
But the announcement is 5 lines.
I'm coming. You know where to get the documents.
Where?
Over 30 people came to the records, came to the EC to acquire those documents. Those documents, yes, vendors, those documents, but if you are interested, mind you, they didn't have to buy, only those who intended to bid actually paid for those documents.
Well, you put 5,000 CDs there, so as soon as I saw that, I don't have money.
But Bright, you are at liberty to come and examine the documents before you buy it.
How can I examine a document that says it costs 5,000 CDs?
No.
If you want to make it transparent, just publish it.
Please. Before you get there, you can examine the documents. Lots of people actually came for the documents. The EC even went a step further for those who were interested to give them the documents. If you want a soft copy, I can give you one now. But the point I'm making, but for you to suggest,
okay, you finish it.
But for you to suggest that all this has been shrouded in secrecy, it's unfair. Okay. When all you had to do as civil society organizations, nothing stopped you from walking to the Electoral Commission and engaging us and finding out what you wanted to do and the rationale behind it. Others did. Why didn't you?
I'll respond.
Okay. Now, this bit about facial recognition. They make it sound as if the facial recognition that we want to add is supposed to supersede the fingerprint. No. All we are saying is that the facial recognition system is an added on. It's an added on to an already existing biometric system. Why not use it? Facial recognition even affords us the ability, if it is properly designed, to detect underage people who are underage that have been, who attempt to register. On top of that, all the devices that you have now for biometric verification now come with cameras. That capability is there. If that capability is sitting there, why not use it? It does not just make sense that you can decrease the amount of rejection rates, or if you like, manual verification rate, taking out the human element when a feature already exists in the device. Why not harness it? What is wrong with doing that? And how can you say that it is superfluous? Do you understand? Now let's go to the individual systems. I'm telling you that the JoyNews system that it has here does not do facial recognition. The databases that are there, and I've seen them, and I have the relationship diagrams. If you want to see them, I'll show them to you. They do not, it doesn't have facial recognition capability. Maybe now, the system that they have, and I've looked at the system that they have now, it's a fully integrated system, can do that. Mind you, JoyNews themselves came for that tender. They applied to bid for that tender. Nobody stopped them. Did anybody stop them? Even though they were already in the system, they came. Because like once you said,
they didn't come with STL, right?
No, they didn't.
Good. That's the point I was making.
They didn't. That's what I'm saying. That nothing stopped them from coming. They did come. Do you understand what I'm saying?
We don't know any of this stuff, so when you finish, I'll react.
But that's the point I'm making. That if you want the information, before CSO went out to print that document that they did, I think that CSO would have done this country a good service if they had come to the Electoral Commission, engaged.
Okay, so you're repeating that. You're repeating that.
Now let's move on. Let's move on.
There's a question. I think I can begin putting people's questions to you now. There's a question. Someone is suggesting that what you're doing, it says that in modern day and age, nobody maintains a data center infrastructure anymore. It's waste of money in procuring hardware and maintenance for same. Money service providers is it prime data centers, primary data centers, and cloud is the way to go.
Yes, that question has been asked.
Yes.
And here's a simple answer to it.
And part of the cost of what you're doing is because you are building a data center.
Exactly. And mind you, that data center we are building at about half of what was proposed to have been built.
Because half of what was proposed to have been built?
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, here's the question. You have a system that is linked to something that everybody is passionate about. Okay. The suggestion has been made that we could have put our systems, or we could have hosted our sensors in the NITA data center, for instance. Okay. Now, this NITA data center is government controlled. And therefore, the perception out there is that if the data is sitting in a government controlled facility, it is easy for governments to interfere with the system. We don't want that tag. That is number one. Number two, if you understand the way hosting services do, you provision what you want, and it is a shared service, all right? Some of the things that we do, for instance, our biometric matching, requires high processors, and sometimes we even use graphic processing units to help aid with the processing. Those services are not something that is, it's not an everyday server. Does NITA have that capability? We don't know. Now, on top of that, there's some of the services that we do that require close proximity with our data set, with our service, which, for instance, the high-speed printers that we use to print the registers, they are in close proximity with our service because we need to push large amounts of data to them at that time. If our printers are sitting in our offices here, what sort of bandwidth is available between the
Okay, no, explain this to me in a minute. Let me explain this to me in a minute, and then I'll go to Bright. The total cost of refurbishment of the old data system was supposed to cost, as you say, 19
thereabout.
19, is it 19 million?
19 million, yeah.
19 million US dollars.
Okay, so this is,
and the new one is supposed to be 7 million. Okay, whose figures are we using?
So once again, the figures that we had for an upgrade and a refurbishment of the data center, plus the 4 million maintenance cost every year, was
That's
offered,
from who?
That was offered by STL.
Okay. Which you don't like?
Which we don't like.
Because you can get it for 7 million.
So basically what we did was that we looked at what we required and went out and got systems, specifications for systems that ended up in a tender. And then the tender was recently awarded.
What you're saying is that when STL gave you 19 million, you have checked elsewhere.
We've checked elsewhere.
And the least you can get is 7 million.
Yes. So we did our own benchmarking. And so for the CSOs to suggest that we are using just the benchmarking that came from a vendor that has its own interest, it's misleading.
Okay.
Because we actually did market surveys. And it is based on the values that we got from the market surveys that we decided that whatever value that these guys were giving us was simply not correct. Okay. He mentions Kenya, for instance. And you see, it's good for you to compare apples and not apples and oranges. The Morpho tablets that he mentioned that was used in Kenya, a unit cost of that tablet was about $717.
Okay. Okay, so you hold on at this point.
Have you seen the catalog?
Hold on at this point. Hold on at this point.
I have the actual documents.
Right.
It's not 717, it's 500.
Thank you.
That's the device.
Hold on there for me.
How much the EC?
Right. Hold on for me.
$3,500 is what you claim.
Hold on for me. Hold on for me.
What is $400?
Thank you very much. You're still watching everything. You're still watching and
no, it's not.
Gentlemen, you're still watching and listening to Newsfile, and Newsfile is brought to you by the kind of sponsorship of MTN. Everywhere you go, they say be a bit patient and they will sort out your problems for you. Star Assurance, your solid partner, Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. Istiqbal, that's quality beyond measure. Amen Scientific, God is the healer. GIA, always remember, insurance companies, claims payment are business. So I take my next break here and I return, then Bright Simmons will again respond to some of the matters that have come up. He's taking a couple of notes, so he'll respond to them, and then we'll speak to US-based cyber experts who will give us some perspectives as well. Then we'll open the phone lines for you to ask the EC your questions. Of course, you can also ask Bright your questions. Clara is here. If you disagree with her on some of the points she raised, you can also ask your questions. We'll be right back. This is Newsfile.